Hey, greetings, everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, and welcome to the Steadfast and Loyal podcast.
You gotta light 'em up before they burn it down. Better dig deep, put 'em in the ground. Blood on their hands, they're hellbound. Save us all. Ooh, they're gonna burn it down. Save us all before they burn it down.
This episode of the Steadfast and Loyal podcast is brought to us by our dear friends at the Concealed Carry Association of America. You can click Learn More below right now to activate your U.S. Concealed Carry Association membership. The U.S. Concealed Carry Association helps responsibly armed Americans like you prepare for the before, during, and after of a self-defense incident. And if you're looking at how crime is out there right now, thanks to Joe Biden, George Soros, and all his Soros DAs, there's going to be a lot of self-defense incidents. USCCA members get life-saving education, expert training, plus self-defense liability insurance. Plus, it's risk-free with their money-back bulletproof guarantee. Click Learn More right now to explore membership. Don't wait until it's too late. Click Learn More now. And remember that the USCCA is not an insurance company. A policy has been issued to the USCCA by Universal Fire and Casualty Insurance Company. That policy provides the association and its members with self-defense liability insurance subject to its terms, conditions, limitations, and exclusions. Hey, greetings, everyone, and welcome back to the Steadfast and Loyal podcast. And as promised, we're here with an incredible Virginia State Senate candidate, Tina Ramirez. Whether crafting legislation, securing the release of imprisoned victims, or engaging foreign dignitaries, Tina Ramirez has worked diligently to bring greater freedom and dignity to people around the world. From her early days as a high school teacher, we can ask her about that, through recent years in charge of an international nonprofit organization, she has committed her entire life to service and to the preservation of human rights for all people. Tina was raised in Powhatan County, Virginia, where her father founded a medical practice and her mother ran a midwifery practice. And Tina now lives in Chesterfield County, Virginia, with her daughter, Abigail. Tina Ramirez, welcome to the Steadfast and Loyal podcast.
Thank you for having me with you. I'm thrilled to be with you.
It's just great. Now, tell everyone which state Senate seat are you running for and what area does that encompass there in Virginia?
So I'm running in District 12, which is all of Chesterfield and Colonial Heights. So it's just south of Richmond in the suburbs.
Okay.
And this is one of the largest counties in Virginia. Mm-hmm. It's one of the seats that needs to be flipped next year in order for Governor Youngkin to have a majority in the state Senate in order to break through the brick wall that the Democrats are putting up against him.
You know, that's very interesting you bring that up because it was a year ago when I think Virginia really turned the tide as far as the national conversation on education freedom, and parental rights. When you had your Democrat gubernatorial candidate, Terry McAuliffe, stand on the debate stage and basically say that parents don't have a right in the decision about what their children are being taught. How did you see that change things on the ground in Virginia, especially you having previously been a high school teacher?
I mean, it was a total game changer. Yes, as a teacher, I mean, I feel bad for teachers across the board because they're totally getting the raw end of the stick because everything's being politicized in the schools and funneled by these liberal organizations that, want to politicize the schools. But we saw last year across the board, independent Democrats were coming over and voting for the Republican governor because of they wanted their parental rights. I mean, it was a game changer. So he overwhelmingly won the parents' support. And, unfortunately, the Democrats didn't quite get the memo on that.
Yeah, it's amazing they didn't get the memo. I mean, it's like they tripled down on it. And so I'm wondering, is that still a lingering issue? I think it is nationally. Is it still a lingering issue there?
Oh, absolutely. So just last week in Virginia, after all the chaos that happened to me, the Democrats proposed legislation that would criminalize parents that didn't recognize the purported transgender of or gender, whatever their child feels their gender is in Virginia. So they're going to put it forward in legislation in the new year. But, the Democrats have doubled down. I mean, they literally just do not get the clue that parents do not want this junk in the classroom. They don't want their kids taught what to think. They want them taught how to think and how to think critically and to be able to have differences of opinion and to respect the values of their parents in the classroom. But, the educational establishment here in Virginia does not respect that. The liberals do not respect that, and they want to shove it down our throats. And they're going to get a rude awakening at the polls this November and next November.
You bring up a great point. It was part of the monologue that I just did before I got on with you, talking about this Virginia state lawmaker that wants to remove a child from a home where the parents don't want to affirm their gender. I mean, you're talking about an incredible encroachment of the state into the business of parents raising their children. Now, is that Virginia Democrat lawmaker in the House of Delegates, or are they a senator?
That's a great question. I know that there's talk between both houses on this particular legislation, and thankfully the Republicans on both sides of the House and the Senate as well are talking about counter legislation, because this kind of a thing completely takes away the rights of parents. Mm-hmm. A couple of years ago, the Democrats put forward these transgender policies in the Virginia legislature that were completely vague and really trampled on the rights of parents across Virginia. And it opened up the floodgates. So, when I was running for Congress last year, we were seeing the critical race theory come out of the woodworks in Northern Virginia. But it was also in Powhatan, Virginia, where I grew up. It was one of the 7 counties in Virginia that was adopting this idea of pushing critical race theory on students. And I saw it all over my district that, this junk that they were pushing in the schools. And then that was just the tip of the iceberg. And then we literally started seeing all the pornography in schools.
Yes.
And then they started pushing these transgender policies. And so, it started actually with these equity policies that bled into the CRT and then everything else. So it's been an absolute disaster here in Virginia. Parents are livid. They want schools to be the best schools in the country. And right now we're literally fighting for 47th right at the bottom.
Why do you think the left has not gotten the message that this is not a winning issue for them to go in, not seeing what happened in Virginia, where they lost the governor's mansion, they lost the lieutenant governor, they lost the attorney general, I believe the House of Delegates, flipped away from them. Why is it that they could not get that message and understand? Why do they continue to follow along Randy Weingarten and the teachers unions and all of this crazy grooming and wokeness in our schools?
Well, I mean, you and I both know that they've been focused on the education of our children for decades. This is nothing new to them. They've been politicizing education and trying to control what our children think for decades. But I think that, what we're seeing right now is so abhorrent, because it's really it's the government coming in and saying, not only are we going to, take your kids to our public schools and not give you any options, but we're going to literally implement a nanny state where the government knows best. And I've seen this in other countries. I traveled when I was my first year of teaching. As you mentioned, I was a former history teacher. I taught the U.S. Constitution. My first year of teaching, I went and visited Romania, and I saw all the orphanages there where the government had told families, hey, bring us your children. And they brought all the children into the orphanage. The kids, I didn't even know until I went there that the kids had families. These were not orphans in the traditional sense. They were kids that the government had said, bring them into these government-run facilities. We will raise your children. And it was an absolute disaster for the country. And they had to be disbanded before they were ever allowed to enter the European Union. But that's what the government now in Virginia and across the country is saying. We know best. Give us your children. Let us raise them. And we will basically create them into our identity, what we want, what we think is best. And it's complete, just denial of the rights of parents, the values of families that really are the first line of defense for every children. But we see this, Alan, all the time, where the Democrats go after the most vulnerable or marginalized communities, whether they're children or, immigrants or you name it, minority communities, and they manipulate them for their votes. And that's what they're doing with our children. And we won't stand for it.
No, you're absolutely right. And I always tell people when you read the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx and Frederick Engels, one of his planks was state control of education. And it wasn't about education, it was going to be about indoctrination. And you can look at Hitler, Lenin, Chairman Mao, all of them talked about how they could control the minds of the young people, that, it would perpetuate them for generations to come. So let's transition to talk about your race. You're
Okay.
running there in the state Senate. What's the balance right now, Republicans and Democrats in the Virginia State Senate?
So it's 19 Republicans, 21 Democrats, and Winsome Sears, our great new lieutenant governor, is the tie-breaking vote if there's a tie. And so we need at least one seat, if not two seats, to break that tie vote in the state Senate. We have the House in the state legislature, so we won the House last year, and we won, obviously, the governor's mansion, lieutenant governor, and attorney general's offices. So we just need two more seats, or at least one in the state Senate, and that's one of the ones I'm running for.
How has your response been from your potential constituents? How has the support been to your efforts?
Well, I've had an overwhelming amount of support from the people in my community. I mean, both with everything that's happened this past week, but also just in general throughout the race. I had been running for a congressional seat last year. It was one of the primary seats that we needed to flip in Virginia. And then I was surprisingly, I think to everyone, our districts were all changed, as everyone knows, across the country. I was moved into a Republican seat with Rob Whitman. So I decided, obviously to step aside for him and to run for a state Senate seat. And with all of the important things taking place in Virginia related to education, and with my background in education, I felt that was really important. And so I had one of the largest launch parties last year in Virginia history in the last decade, with over 500 people showing up overnight to support me when I was running. And so we feel really good. We have a huge base of support, great name ID in the district. I'm the second highest fundraiser in the state of Virginia for state office. Nice. So I feel really great about it. And, the people want something different. They don't want, just a political animal. They want an outsider. They want a mother. They want someone that's going to genuinely fight for them and for their values, and that, really represents what they've been fighting for all along the last couple of years in changing Virginia. And so I'm just honored to be able to represent them.
Now, we hear all the talk about what the critical issues are. And if you talk to the Democrats and their political consultants, whatever, they'll tell you that it has to be about abortion, which I say, let's get away from using the words that they use and call it for what it is: murdering unborn babies by dismemberment in the womb. You just recently had Governor Ralph Northam, who basically talked about infanticide even after a child was born, allowing that child to die. What are the real issues on the ground in Virginia State Senate District number 12?
Well, you're right. And all of those issues that you mentioned are really important to me and will be critical in the state Senate, because, post Dobbs, the state is where these fights are going to be had when it comes to the life issue. And as a single mother who had a child in a very difficult situation, I am extremely pro-life, and I am completely there with families that are in difficult situations. And I want to make sure they have the support they need to choose life and to receive the greatest blessing that I've ever had in my life, which is my daughter. I want every woman to be able to experience that. When it comes to the top issues in the state in Virginia right now, the economy is absolutely number one. And we're seeing this across the country. The Democratic policies, Biden's economy, have destroyed families' ability to provide for their children and for their future. And, as a single mother that is the sole provider for my daughter, I feel this in my own family, and I think about it frequently. And I know that whenever I'm talking to constituents, it's on everyone's minds. The elderly that are on fixed incomes, retirees, or, anyone in, different income brackets, they can't get ahead right now. Yeah. Everything is inflated, from the cars they want to buy to gas at the gas station, food at the grocery stores, everything. And so families are really suffering. Businesses are suffering because they are going to have to pass these costs on to customers. But coming out of COVID, they're just trying to maintain. And so small businesses are the backbone of our economy, and they're really suffering right now. So really, it's the economy. But second to the economy, I would say absolutely in Virginia is education. This is first and foremost at people's minds. As I said, we're racing to the bottom right now in Virginia at 47th because of the just disastrous Democratic policies. and they want to keep pushing their liberal policies. And so we want to race to the top. We want to, provide innovation and opportunity and choice for families. And those are really the two biggest issues here in Virginia right now.
Yeah, I will tell you, I was just recently out of Arizona. They just passed an incredible education freedom legislation out there. It is the gold standard, I think, for school choice and parental choice. And so when you get there, Senator, y'all take a look at that. Now, let's talk about another issue I think that a lot of people aren't talking about, but yet people on the ground feel it. And I think you know what I'm about to say. It's the crime issue. Do you see crime being an issue there for your constituents in state Senate District 12?
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, thankfully in Chesterfield County, we have just an amazing police department, sheriff's office. They have, I think that actually our Chesterfield, the head of our chief of police just got elected as the head of police in all of Virginia. So, I mean, we are very blessed here in my district. However, right next door in Richmond has been an absolute disaster. I mean, the liberals went crazy throughout the city during the George Floyd riots a couple of years ago, destroying monuments, destroying the city. And as a result, many people left the service. The police were attacked all over Virginia, as you've seen. Even when they began to attack our Supreme Court justices' homes in Northern Virginia, some of the Commonwealth attorneys up there that are liberal have not been protecting those homes or prosecuting people that are committing violence against our Supreme Court justices. So, we see in areas where they are run by Democrats and by progressive liberals that the people are suffering, that there is lawlessness. Obviously, in Virginia, just as everywhere else in the country, we have a major problem with fentanyl and with drug overdoses. It's something that we talk to our police department and our community leaders all the time about. We have a great program, the HARP program, that's in our Chesterfield Sheriff's Prison, where he helps rehabilitate people that are addicted to drugs and or have other mental health issues. And so we have great programs here, but the capacity is a challenge because obviously the border is an absolute disaster, and the fentanyl crisis, is beyond the pale here in our country. And so it's putting an absolutely unnecessary pressure on the police department, and especially after the police have been so, just not only neglected, but they, just put down in the media, and they deserve our utmost support. And, at this time, I mean, they are the first line of defense for us and for our homes and our safety. So.
Yeah, I will tell you that, I live down here in Texas, and every state, I mean, it's not just a trite little saying, but every state has become a border state, especially when you think about the fentanyl issue and the fact that this is coming from China, okay, our number one geopolitical foe, flowing through these, terrorist groups that are called the cartels and coming to America. This is a war, and we're losing, 18 to 45-year-olds. And one of the things that I tell people, and feel free to use it, that we have lost more to fentanyl deaths in the last 2 years than the Korea and Vietnam wars combined. And if that cannot get people to understand the criticality of getting this under control, I don't know what will. Let's talk about you, and let's talk about an interesting thing that just recently happened to you where some real woke, not even a beta male, probably a delta male, leftist journalist came after you because you just said Happy Columbus Day, and you shared that with your daughter. I mean, what is wrong with these people?
I mean, I think that they are lunatics, and unfortunately, they're the standard for the progressive left right now. And so, I like what Tulsi Gabbard said. It's time to leave the party because the party has left the people. Liberalism used to mean something very different than it means today.
Yes, correct.
These progressive liberals do not believe in freedom of thought, freedom of expression, freedom of conscience. These are the kinds of things that I fight for all over the world for persecuted Christians and others that are being attacked because of who they are and what they believe. These are not things that we should have to fight for here in America. They're part of our Constitution, our culture. You fought for these freedoms. This is insane that a single mother has to fight for the ability to teach my own child American history. Why should I be fighting for that? But yes, this nut job attacked me on social media, called me a racist, and thought he could teach me.
Okay, he called you a racist. A Hispanic woman is now a racist.
And my daughter, my biological child, is Black. I mean, her father was from Africa. So, I teach her about a lot of history, and but he wasn't interested in that. He just wanted to assume that I must be a racist because I don't agree with him.
It's amazing. And you're right, because we're losing those constitutional rights. When you don't have freedom of speech, you have freedom of accepted speech. And they determine what is accepted speech. You don't have freedom of expression unless it's an expression that they want to allow you to have, outside of, whatever, outside of your home. But now they want to come into your home and tell you what you can say and what you can express. So in the final closing minutes that we have here, this podcast goes all across the United States of America. What should people in Nevada or Connecticut or wherever, here in Texas, what should they know about the importance of State Senate District number 12 in Virginia, and what should they know about Tina Ramirez?
Well, thank you. Look, this is one of the most critical seats that we need to flip in Virginia in order for Governor Youngkin to overcome the Democrats' brick wall that is literally preventing parents from having the true freedom that we deserve, not only here in Virginia, but in the whole nation. But as we saw last year, Virginia is just going to open the floodgates for the whole nation to restore our fundamental rights and freedoms in this country. And so it's critical that we win and that we fight and that we push back against what the progressive left has tried to do in destroying our country, our families, and our freedom. So I would love their support, and they can go to tinaramirez.com to learn more. They can learn more about the fight with me and this guy that tried to take my child away from me with Child Protective Services because he didn't like the way I was teaching my daughter American history online at our social media sites as well. But thank you, Alan.
So, Tina, I hear that you have this project with children's books. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so with my company that I run a nonprofit that does religious freedom work around the world. We designed a series of children's books based on the lessons of religious freedom that teachers all over the world were developing for their students. So we wrote stories around those lessons and published a series of children's books to help promote these values of religious freedom for children everywhere. So if any of your listeners want to get them, they can go to hardwiredglobal.org. That's my company, and I'd love to be able to share those with them.
Can you say once again the website?
Absolutely. It's hardwiredglobal.org.
Okay. Now, folks, we need to have the right type of role models and examples for our children, not the drag queens. No more drag queen story hour and all of this very delusional, perverse stuff that we're exposing our kids to. And to me, that's contributing to the delinquency of a minor. I mean, what's next? I mean, will we start taking our children into pornographic movie theaters or bookstores or whatever? I mean, we might as well with some of the things that are going on. So thank you so much for what you're doing with telling our kids faith-based, principle-based, values-based stories that can build up their character. Tina Ramirez, is just so great to have had you on the Steadfast and Loyal podcast. Good luck to you. State Senate District 12 in Virginia candidate. We'll have you back on after you win.
Great. Thank you.
God be with you. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for joining us on the Steadfast and Loyal podcast. A big hat tip off to Tina Ramirez. She is running for Virginia State Senate District number 12. If you can, go out and support her. That's such a critical election for the state of Virginia and for the United States of America, so that we can make sure that we have a clean sweep across the Commonwealth of Virginia with the governor, lieutenant governor, the House of Delegates, and also the state Senate. And if you like what you have seen on this podcast, please hit the like button and share it with others, because we're here to make sure you're well informed, you're well educated, and well activated. Until next time, steadfast and loyal.
Before they burn it down.